right, it's going back around the Tua or not the Tua season 5. And a big thing that I'm seeing on the Twitterverse, Xverse, is Tua throwing to his first read so much. That's, from what I'm hearing, indicative that he's not a good quarterback. Now, I'm not here to say Tua is the guy or he's not the guy. I do think the kid's pretty good. You don't throw for the amount of yards that this kid's thrown and not be, above the bottom of the barrel. It's just not realistic. It's fantasy. I mean, you can have great receivers and still not do well. It comes down to the quarterback driving those skills to a certain extent. We see Dak, he's got a load of skills. He's never reached the level that Tua has. I'm not saying he's a better quarterback. But what I want to do here is not say whether Tua is the greatest thing since sliced bread or the worst thing forever. I want to show you real statistics, contextual statistics, comparing Burrow, who I think most people would say is a good quarterback, and Tua, and showing the stat that people are using about the first read throw, okay? And I'm going to do a little drop in of Purdy as well. So I think this is a good one. I think this says that you have to begin understanding how to evaluate. And I'm not saying if you don't think Tua is good, you're a bad evaluator. But you have to understand it is a team game. And you've got to drive out everything from the context. Okay? So without much further ado, a little further ado. Still under the weather a little bit, getting out of it, but no live this week. I'll be back to doing a live next week. Just don't got the energy. Getting some other stuff out to you this week, but there'll be no live this week. But also, I want to say, guys, the likes, the subscribes, the comments, the views, all that stuff keeps me in the biz to do this thing that I love to do. So I want to give you a shout out and a shout out to Ace Bread, my sponsor, because without doing you, this show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. All right, so here we go. This is the graphic you can see here. First read throw and EPA. I'm going to not pay attention to the EPA. That's, I'm not going to really focus on that. But I want you to see, I put purple circles around a few names. These are quarterbacks that most people that don't like Tua would say these are excellent quarterbacks. You can debate whether you like Tua or not, where they are compared to Tua. It's not what I want to get involved with. But you could see clearly Mahomes, who's probably one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback. He has the least first read throw, then Hurts and Herbert and Allen. Jackson's kind of getting in the range of Tua and Stroud. But the one thing I want you to take a notice quickly is they are highly mobile quarterbacks. And that changes things because they have the ability to uplift certain elements of the offense. They have a tendency to move around a lot and buy time, which gives them the ability to get to further reads. It's not the only reason, but let's hold on to that. You got Purdy at the top. You can see right there who's behind Tua. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to focus on this other group to kind of create some context for Tua and this first person through. You see Stafford, who's no longer as mobile as he used to be. He was never super mobile, but he is older. He understands. His body is beat up. And he's right there just about with Tua in first read throws. Then you can see Deshaun Watson is even higher. And remember, if we didn't get Deshaun Watson a couple years ago, we were doomed. If we got him, we would have gone to the Super Bowl. He's much higher than Tua on his first read throws. Trevor Lawrence is another guy who's considered generational talent. He is much, much higher than Tua. And then you got Burrow. And I want to focus on these two players to create context about this first read throw. First-person shooter. Sorry, I'm still under the weather, guys. So Burrow he was a little bit more mobile. He's kind of reduced it a little bit. He's kind of, you could say maybe he's a little bit more mobile into it, but he doesn't run around a lot. You know that he has had terrible offensive lines. I think that you're really not evaluating properly if you don't think Tua's had a bad offensive line. There's a lot. Both guys have been asked to throw first. The run game has been pulled back a little bit. Burrow is a guy, clearly first overall pick. We know he's a superstar. We know he's got clutch. Took a team to a Super Bowl that really should have won if it wasn't for having such a terrible offensive line and getting the hell beat out of him. So when we see that graphic, Burrow has thrown more on it, first read throws than Tua. But why? What does this mean? Both these guys are not scramblers. Both these guys have poor offensive lines. So let's take a look at this graphic here. I created some unique stats, paired together a unique set of analytics for you. Burrow at the top, Tua at the bottom. Time to throw clean / time to throw blitzed. Blockers per pass, and then the adjusted play action blockers per pass. Anytime you run a play action, there's at least 2 more guys in protection. So got that there for you. Pressure rank, intended air yards, and the rank. Play action numbers, and then blitzes that times amount of blitzes that these quarterbacks were blitzed per game. And there'll be some interesting stats there. Now, the red circles are extreme disparity. Okay, so Burrow, we know they have 3 awesome receivers. You could say they match up to our 2 awesome receivers. Quality receivers on both quarterbacks. Bad offensive line, although they did invest some nice pieces last year, but not quite enough. Obviously, Burrow got beat up quite a bit. But look at the time to throw clean. It's roughly the same, 69.5% to 75.4, 2.12 to 2.09. Both these guys got the ball out super quick. But notice the time to throw blitzed. Tua is the only quarterback in the league that has a less blitz time to throw than his clean time to throw. And there's a stark difference of 1.17, almost 2-second difference. Actually, 2.18, which is almost 2-second difference. 0.2 of a second difference, which is massive. So you had better protection to some degree. You could say Burrow hung in there more if you want or whatever, but it's not going to make a 0.20 difference. And so despite both these guys having bad lines, obviously there was some real problems here with Tua's protection compared to Burrow's. Neither one was stellar. You look at Purdy is like 2.56 just for blitz time to throw, just to keep that up there for you. He's a little more mobile. He likes to move around a little bit, but he's not Flash Thompson, Flash from DC Heroes or whatever. So now blockers per pass. The more blockers you keep in, the less guys in routes. And you want guys in routes. It gives you more options. It allows you to put more pressure on a secondary. Now, Burrow, his flat blockers per pass was 5.79 compared to Tua's 6.07. Strong difference, despite Burrow notably having this poor offensive line. And still getting a little bit better blitz time to protection. But the blockers per pass adjusted was 6.22 compared to 6.66. When you factor in this super fast time to throw and these blockers per pass, this is not a good recipe. You could see here, obviously, pressure rank 23rd, 18.4, compared to 29th, least 15.5. And you could say, well, that's better protection. But again, look at the difference in the amount of blockers being used and the lack of blitz time to throw and how much there's a little tick up in the clean time to throw. All this says that despite the Bengals having a poor offensive line and a percentage only being 3.4 difference, the Dolphins really struggled in their protection, had to bring a lot more guys, leaving a lot more less guys in routes and more guys in protection. And when you combine it with the intended air yards, Tua's dropped. It was like 9 point something last year, went dropped to 7.7, obviously 6.3 for Burrow. That's a way to mitigate the lack of blockers. It shows that this is a very poor offensive line. It's probably some of the reason why the blitz time to throw is a little bit easier. But Tua took a substantial drop down. But why? Again, the blitz time to throw, the quickly getting the ball out that quick and keeping this many guys in blockers. But notice too, the difference in play actions. It's 30% more for Tua. 30% of his plays were play action. 1 out of 3 was play action, meaning you were keeping, 7, 8 guys in for protection at that time and using this play action to buy time, to put bodies in the way, to maybe get people to believe it's a run so you can create space for your receivers. Now, Burrow is ranked 35th, but you can see the percentage there. And then you go to the blitzed time to throw, 8.3 compared to 6.8 for Tua. And Tua is one of the least blitzed players in the league, which means they were keeping 6.6 guys in protection. 1 out of 3 plays meant they had 7 or 8 guys blocking. It was all slowed down for the play action. They had one of the least blitz time to throw, and that means they were seeing for most of the game 7 guys in coverage, but still getting the pressure that you're seeing here. And so you have to understand, if you go back to this other graphic, Lawrence, not a good offense. Watson can't really read the field, holds the ball way too long. Stafford, he's a guy too that had a beat up offensive line. Burrow beat off offensive line, and Mac Jones beat up offensive line. And Riddler, he can't even read. He's going to be out of the league or be a backup. So all these guys had reasons to throw the football fast. But however you slice it, if you look at the EPA, Tua made the most out of it. And so when you go through the protections, what Miami's doing to keep this guy upright, it shows, it lends credence that they're throwing the football fast, not because they want to, not because Tua can't get to the next read. If Tua couldn't get to the next read, he would be frozen and you would see a much higher clean time to throw. You would see much more pressure and you would see a much higher overall time to throw. The reality is, in my evaluation, they understand the protection is bad. They understand they have to throw fast. They also understand that Tua can throw with anticipation. He can throw with a quick release. Now, to the other side, is it because he can't do better? Well, I don't think we're going to know that until you get real protection, like much of the rest of the league. Look at the offensive line that Prescott's got, Goff has got, Purdy's got. Purdy doesn't have a great offensive line, but they run the football inside and out, and they have a better offensive line. You go through the list of these players, and you'll see that the Dolphins' offensive line is and has been garbage. And so the tendency would be that the reason for the quick throw is through necessity, and Tua is using his quick release and anticipatory power and the speed of these receivers to create leverage and to get in those pockets to accentuate a bad situation on the offensive line. If your first read throw makes you this high, makes you a bad quarterback, then Burrow's a bad quarterback, Lawrence is a bad quarterback, Stafford's a pretty bad quarterback, and Watson's a pretty bad quarterback. And so I think when you take it all together, and if you look at Purdy quickly, he's blitzed 40% of the time. His time to throw under the blitz, let me check right here, blitzed time to throw is 2.64 compared to 2.08. It's almost half a second more. And they have issues because they do throw the football fast at 2.34 seconds clean time to throw. But blitzes is when they bring the extra guy and the quarterback holds the football and you can get to that second and third read, and there's a thin secondary and there's an overabundance of receivers in that secondary, and they've had time to break free and create separation. Huge, huge, huge disparity. And so I think that you can't say Tua is the greatest quarterback ever. I think you can say this guy, he's got a really good niche skill. But the offensive line, is it the chicken or the egg? If you give him a great offensive line, will he be great? Will he take us to Super Bowl? You can't say that either. But clearly you can see this offensive line, 2.08 clean time to throw versus 2.64. One guy went to the Super Bowl and one guy got beat by most of the good teams. Why? Go check out the numbers. Sitting in coverage all day, still getting pressure at a high rate despite a very high number of play actions and blockers per pass. So, guys, you got to evaluate fairly. You might not like Tua, but you might like somebody else. And if you allow the media to have the leeway to push false narratives, it's going to come back to haunt you. Some of you like Flores out of there that I'm speaking to. Flores had a lot of false narratives. Some of them were true, but not all of them. You might like Tua. The same thing's going to come back around to him, or McDaniel, or Greer, whoever. Whatever the deal is, lack of truth, lack of good evaluations is going to come back to haunt you. And I know it's easy clicks, and it feels good, but this kid has been subject to terrible foundation and framework since he's been in here. Offensive line makes the NFL world go around. That's why all the top teams have invested heavily in the offensive line. Does it mean Greer is wrong? No. Maybe they found the secret way through this tried and true formula. We'll see this year. But without a doubt, having a good offensive line makes it easier for the OC, makes it easier for the quarterback, and makes it easier for all the skills and the defense. It just lowers the difficulty level. It's a difference between playing all Madden or Madden, depending on what offensive line you have. Don't need a top 5 or top 10, but there's not one Super Bowl team that's ever won with a terrible offensive line. Be well, go Fins, Curtis out. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.